Billiken fans, welcome back. It's Zach Miller and Peter Hale. It's the Midtown Madness Podcast. Before we get going, thank you so much for listening. And if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. We're almost to 125 subscribers, which sounds lame as hell, but it's super cool in this niche market that we have here. So please go and subscribe. It's season 4, and once again, the Midtown Madness Podcast is brought to you by Two Men in a Garden. I consume a ton of internet content, and I can't believe some of the ridiculous sponsorships on podcasts, YouTube videos. No useless subscription services that send you a new piece of bathroom decoration every week. No, not here. We're only about 2 Men in a Garden salsa. It's local, tastes amazing. They've got all the flavors to suit your individual salsa preferences. You can pick up their many products at any local grocery store or online at twomeninthegarden.com. If you're particular about your salsa taste, you might want to go check them out first online before you head to the store. Follow them on social media at Two Men Salsa on Instagram and Twitter. Pete, I think we need to start this off with a little bit of a what's the word I'm looking for? A disclaimer.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think every episode we've ever done on this show has come with a disclaimer that we are recording this on Sunday night, and St. Louis University Athletics has a penchant for releasing big news on Mondays.
They do.
What I guess the question is, what do we think is going to happen? So obviously, why don't you run us down kind of where the streets have been talking, what the streets have been talking about? That's an old school Billikens.com reference. I hope anybody gets that. But run us down kind of the timeline of the rumors out there.
It's hard to keep track of, Zach. I mean, I think the main thought out there is that Travis Ford is not going to be retained. And the question and the rumors all have to do with basically the timeline. When is this going to happen? And obviously people have gone far down the path of speculating on who the next coach could be and things like that. And we're not going to go there quite yet, but
we're going to have so much time to do that.
So much to say on that. Pretty soon if things go as expected. But in the meantime, I think a lot of people thought that this would happen between the last regular season game, which was St. Bonaventure, and the first game in Brooklyn, which is Tuesday. And that's tricky because we knew the team was going straight from Bonaventure to Brooklyn. And so the question was it going to happen right after the game? Was he going to come back to St. Louis? Is he going to go with the team and then come back to St. Louis? Is he going to coach it out in Brooklyn the way, like, for example, Lorenzo Romar coached out Pepperdine in the WCC conference tournament? What's this going to be? Like, none of us quite knew, and we had heard a lot of conflicting things. And so we for a while it was looking like it would be Sunday. Now we know he's in Brooklyn. Don't know if it's going to happen before the tournament or not. We just don't.
Yeah, I think, and there's some layers to the travel from Brooklyn or from Bonaventure to Brooklyn where you're kind of like, oh, this poor bastard. He's gonna have to. So the flight was delayed at whatever airport, the Olean Regional Airport or whatever. So they couldn't fly into Brooklyn. So they ended up taking a 6-hour bus ride, which is par for the course when it comes to travel up there in the great Northeast.
Yeah, Bonaventure has never been an easy trip for St. Louis. Obviously, the lack of an airport up there, the lack of a St. Bonaventure International Airport does them no favors, but it's tricky to get to. Even if you're flying in and out of Pittsburgh, which is just a couple hours away, that's not interstate, between the two places. And you're going through some mountains and it's the winter and it's tough. Other than that, you're going to drive a couple hours any direction. Buffalo, it doesn't matter, no matter which way you're going. It's just not close to anything. Now, 6 hours, I know a lot of people are like, oh, we're Midwesterners, right? That's no big deal. It's no big deal. But even in my day, if it was over 5 hours, we were flying. Like, we flew to Dayton or to Cincinnati Milwaukee. We would bus to Chicago, fly to Milwaukee generally, to play Marquette. So you would bus if it were like in a Chicago or a Memphis or in Indianapolis or Kansas City, but outside of that radius, I mean, we were generally going to fly.
What's the room situation like on a bus for a men's basketball travel party? Because so I've done I back when I was working with the Ambush, I did one of the bus trips. I did two of them actually to the the Northeast, Syracuse, and Baltimore, I think. Anyway, there were everybody had kind of their own row, but it's still a brutal situation.
Yeah, you're generally getting your own row. I think it's one of those things like most people are going to get their own row. There might be a few exceptions, like a couple people might have to double up.
Managers.
Being a manager,
Uh,
we're the smallest and we're at the low end of the pecking order. So we definitely know our role there. But no, for the most part, you get your own row. But like some of these guys are like 6'10", and even having your own row on a coach bus is not exactly room to really spread out. It's
yeah,
kind of an
I,
awkward,
I had forgot.
fit.
Oh yeah, I had forgotten that I did take a when I was volleyball manager, I did take one road trip to the Xavier Dayton swing.
Mm.
And that was interesting. You just like being a manager, like I think I was like the first manager in program history. And if so like and of course like you don't like I just tried to shut up and not say anything. Like that was the least I've talked in my life was that bus
Mhm.
trip. I'm just like I didn't nothing for me. Like I don't want to ruffle any feathers on this trip. So yeah, is that, I mean, so can you imagine riding on a 6 hour bus ride with a coach that's, he's driving to the place that he's going to get fired. Like we know he's going to be fired, whether or not, you know, in Brooklyn, because the season's going to end there.
Well, I think the players don't really know. I mean, I don't know how wired in they are to a lot of like the online chatter. I think they're aware of like the general mood around the program and that people aren't happy and that people think that he's going to be fired, but it's not like they have inside information
Right.
on what the decision is going to be and when it's going to happen, right? Like they can only speculate based on what the rest of us know, and even then, they're not getting as deep into the weeds as like super fans like us are. So they're only going to be able to speculate, but it's definitely in a season like this, it hangs over the whole program all year long, right? Like it's not exactly like something really has changed for them in the past few days or anything like that. It's just a matter of, they probably think it's going to happen. They're not sure. They don't know what the timeline's going to be. So I don't know. I will say this, it's a lot easier traveling after a win than after a loss, even in a season like this.
Yeah. I mean, it is, I cannot believe it lined up so perfect where you have to go straight to Brooklyn from Bonaventure that it's just a complete shit show. And we did find out that Chris May was in St. Louis this weekend. I believe Billikens.com, there were some people at the baseball game that said he was there. So, I mean, look, maybe it had to do with Chris May when he was flying into Brooklyn. I just can't imagine you fire somebody on a Sunday. Like, we've kind of really taken Chris May to task over the years, but like I don't think he's firing a coach on a Sunday.
Right.
Um, I what do you think happens here? Like, what is your guess at a timeline of okay? So starting tomorrow morning,
Yeah. So tomorrow morning, I mean, tomorrow's the practice day, right? The big practice and media day in Brooklyn before the tournament kicks off on Tuesday. Uh, the At this point, now that we've gone the rest of Saturday and all of Sunday, here, we're recording at 7:45 St. Louis time right now. Uh, is that right? Do I have that
yeah,
time right? Yeah,
yep,
7:45 St. Louis time. All right. There was a time change, plus I'm an hour off
that's
this
true.
week. Anyway, so nothing has happened yet. And I don't know that they would do it on the conference tournament media day. I kind of went back and forth before, and now the more that I've thought of it, it would be kind of a crazy thing to go public with it the day of, the big practice day, the big where the media is going to be buzzing around Brooklyn. It might be one of those things that happens in, like it did with Jim Cruz, where it happens in private before they go up there, and then the post game press conference after the final loss is where he announces it, or where the program announces it, or puts out their press release or whatever. So that's already happened once. That was what happened with the last coach at SLU. Um, I think that could very well happen. Yeah, the fact that we've now gone a day and a half since that Bonaventure game, I don't think it's going to happen before we play up there at this point. That's kind of where I'm at. And look, by the time this comes out on Monday morning, I might already be wrong. We'll see, but that would be my best guess, is that it's similar to the Jim Cruz timeline. And you're on mute before you get going.
Yeah. Of course. No, I thought it was interesting with the Ben Fred article as well that came out that seemed to indicate that it would be Monday. So, I mean, he did say in the coming days. I'm not really sure what to make of it. Ben Fred really doesn't seem to be reporting as much as he is just like, hey guys, it's time to make a decision here.
So that's the only thing that kind of gives me pause, right? Is I think it seems like SLU has made some local media availability for Monday morning. And
Which is weird because Stu did not travel to.
Stu's not in Brooklyn. That didn't have anything to do with this situation. It has to do with, his own
Right.
employer. But both his tweets and the Ben Fred article kind of leads you to believe like, oh, maybe there is going to be a Monday morning announcement. But it's just weird because like Ford's already up there, right? And to my knowledge, he hasn't come back to St. Louis or anything like that. So I don't know. That's the only thing that kind of makes me think that's when it's going to happen now. But as time has gone on, like I went from starting this weekend thinking it was going to happen, before we recorded this, to now thinking that they're just going to let him play out the conference tournament up there.
Yeah, I mean, like as long as the move is made official, I think immediately after that game, I don't think there's any reason to panic. I think it's fine. I don't love it. I'd love to, you know, Chris May talked about how he came back and put his weight behind Travis Ford going into the A10 championship because he thought it would raise the team's, I don't know, whatever belief level. I don't know. They'd play better, right?
Sure.
So I don't know. That is he asking him that question this time, and that they know that it's final. They know that things are gonna they all of the uncertainty is washed away, and they're allowed to go out on the court and just play. So I mean, I do think Chris May thinks that his decision is going to have some impact on anything on the court. And I don't know if he's totally wrong. I just as soon get it over with and let Billiken fans get at least one game of just full on, really behind the team, knowing that a change is coming, and we can just have fun with this final game or final two games.
Yeah, I certainly don't disagree with that. And if it does happen Monday morning, today, as this is being released, of course, I won't be completely surprised. I've been going back and forth all weekend in my head, and this is just where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
So that's part of it. But the other factor here is you're talking about May and May's decision, but I think a lot of the decision making power here is still the people funding his salary, right? And it's been clear in the last year or so that they're just not all on the same page.
Yeah.
And that's, unfortunately, that is part of the athletic director's job, but that's also the result of things not going well at a program. And there's always going to be some of that. A lot of people who have a lot of power and money in their own worlds, and then they get together in this other world, and then you wind up with different factions. And you'd really like to see a little more unity there and a little more vision and focus there. And I don't know that they're necessarily in agreement on how to move forward, from this point and then with the next hire and everything like that. So obviously we'll see in the next couple of days what happens here, but I think a lot of them, there's probably different thoughts among that camp as well. And that could be part of why this is dragging on longer than maybe people thought.
Yeah, I think that's one of May's, downsides. We go at him and we give him a lot of trouble. And I think, obviously he's great at fundraising. There's not much else you can't really draw another conclusion. You can be unhappy about what he's been fundraising and that kind of stuff. But I mean, the guy can raise money. I don't know if he has a vision for this athletic department and a vision he can sell to a group of multiple donors, big donors. So I think that is really where the worry should come from, is that we have five, I would say a handful of people that are making this decision, and the guy that needs to get them on the same page doesn't really have the presence in the room to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Look, yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you said right there. I just think like, this makes me think of the Cheryl Levick situation when
right.
Majerus was hired and they went over his head. And I don't think that's what's going on here. I don't think there's like a donor or donors who are working directly with Costello to go over May's head. I don't think that at all is the
No.
dynamic right now. But I do think you have an athletic director who, you and I have been critical of, as you said, for he's kind of a micromanager and a control freak, and not looking like he's in control of this situation is probably an issue for him. Maybe what Ben Fred says is right, and that he'll be the one to look like he's in charge. As people are saying right now on Billikens.com, there's people saying he needs to seem like he's in charge, and Ben Fred's making it sound like we're going to hear something Monday, and maybe we will. I don't know what that means for Ford in Brooklyn. I would have to think that he's going to coach this thing out, the way a few other coaches have, like Romar.
Yeah.
Either way, but yeah, the timing of this is unfortunately, I hate that it's going to come down to egos and not what makes the most sense for the program moving forward.
Um, does it matter if it's announced at the end of the tournament, or at the end of after the final whistle of the final SLU loss? Do you think it matters if it's announced now or then?
In terms of what we can get out of the team?
No, anything. I mean, as far as the coaching search goes, are we
Well,
worried about that transition?
so I think the things that we've touched on before is there may be issues within his contract, right? Like we may be on the hook for more money depending on when it occurs. So there's that, and none of us know how that clause is written up. And then the other factor is getting a jump start on the market. And you can back channel things all you want, but until you have a vacancy in a given position, it's really hard to go about a full on earnest coaching search. It's not like you can have guys coming to visit, looking around the office and everything before the predecessor is even fired. So I think that's kind of those are kind of the two big factors there. I don't see SLU as really having a path in this tournament. I think we could very well win the first round game because Rhode Island's terrible. Beyond that, things get trickier. We've got to get through Dayton again. Who is it before Dayton? And we'll go over this.
There's no path.
Yeah, so it just seems very, very unlikely they're going to win that many games in such a short amount of time, and when they haven't been able to string wins together in this conference at all season. I just find it hard to believe they're going to suddenly do that now, unless they play like they did up in St. Bonaventure the other day. Then maybe they'll win a few, but even then, you've got to beat some very, very good teams in the last couple rounds of this thing, and I just don't see it happening. So all that said, does it really change anything without knowing the contract? I can't say for sure, but I gotta think every day counts when you're trying to get a jump, and if there's somebody you really want. So unless they already have sort of a back channel agreement with somebody and they're comfortable with where they stand, it's just hard to say.
Yeah. What do you think we talk about this Dayton game on Tuesday the 5th? And I've got a description for this game, Peter. And I think you know what I'm about to say.
I want to hear it, Zach. I want to hear your description because I'm not 100% sure. What I know is we lost 100-83 on
Yes.
Tuesday the 5th at home on our senior night against Dayton. What is your quick description of this game?
This was a senior night travesty.
So that's definitely a written joke, a visual joke.
Yes.
Travesty.
Yes. This was, you know what? I will start this off on a positive note, Peter.
Mm-hmm.
For 5 to 10 minutes in this game, I felt like a fan again. I felt I was standing. I was yelling at the refs. I was booing Dayton players. It was a beautiful time for that short window. But after that, I think there were moments where I couldn't have been more grossed out.
So you're talking about the first 5 to 10 minutes.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
When you said 5 to 10 minutes of the game, I just making sure those were the ones because there weren't many other 5 to 10 minute stretches I think you could pull from this one that would have been halfway decent.
No, and I think the biggest sin of all, basketball sin, not like Catholics and shit. It was the fact that Terrence Hargrove did not get an ovation on senior night. Were you shocked?
You know what? I still was, even though this is a thing that has happened all year long and that we've complained about all season long, is Travis not pulling his starters when the game is already pretty much decided, right? Well, like we're down 15-20, it's under 2 minutes, and he leaves his starters in. He doesn't get his bench guys any run, doesn't let the walk-ons in for their moment. And it's weird too, Zach, honestly, for a coach who's complained about injuries all year long, to whatever degree you think that's a fair excuse or not. He's mentioned that all year long, and he's willing to leave his starters in garbage time. And to me, if you really, really were concerned about the amount of injuries you've had on this team, you would pull those guys when the game is already decided. But he's done this all year to make losses look more respectable. And even though he's done that, even though we've complained about it all year long, I really thought he'd at least pull Hargrove out of this game at the end. He's the only guy who went through senior night. Didn't make a difference either way if he was in for the last minute or not. You got to pull him out. You got to let whoever's left in the crowd, and plenty of people left early. Yeah. You got to let whoever's left give him the applause he deserves because he's had a really nice 5-year career as a Billiken.
Yeah. I had a funny moment with this one. I was hanging out with our good friend Joel of 2 Men in a Garden, and we're sitting there watching the end of this nightmare, and I look up and there's about the 2 minutes left in the game, and I decide I'm gonna get on because it's quiet in there. I'm like, okay, they can hear me. I'm gonna pontificate a little bit about him leaving his starters in, and I'm yelling, and then like talking. Then I go switch to the Hargrove thing, and there's a group of Dayton fans sitting behind us, and the hilarious thing is I'm heckling our own coach, and I've got a Dayton girl behind me wooing to try to drown me out, heckling my own team, my own coach, our own coach.
She just couldn't have that. Couldn't let you have that.
No, what do you do? Like,
it's incredible.
I guess that's a 3D chess move, though.
I guess. I mean, we just saw a Dayton fan all alone by herself in the Loyola student section last weekend. And now
it's a mental, it's a disease, Peter. It's a a Flyer, being a Flyer fan should be classified as an illness.
It should. It
Yeah,
should.
those poor people should get like treatment and I don't know. They're not all there, man.
Yeah, they're a special group. They're a
Uh,
special group.
this was a history-making Arch Baron Cup. Not for a good reason.
It's the first time either team has ever reached 100 points in the Arch Baron Cup. I think this was matchup number 72 overall in the historical series, and it's the first time somebody's gotten to 100. Actually, I was scanning through really quickly, and I didn't know anyone had even reached 90, but I did find a few. It's just been a while. This is generally a relatively low-scoring game. Historically, it just always has been that way. But how do you get to 100 points, Zach? You go 18 for 33 from 3-point range, and you shoot 55.4% overall from the field. That's a pretty surefire way to score 100. I gotta say, Zach, we've known all year long Dayton is one of the better 3-point shooting teams in the nation.
Yeah.
And they've got the guy who is leading the nation in individual 3-point percentage in Brea. And you would never have known that SLU had any idea that was the case. A team they've already played, a team that they consider their rival, that they're in the same conference. They just seemed surprised that Dayton would shoot so many threes and make them.
I just don't, I get tired of watching teams bomb 3-pointers on us.
We do everything wrong in that regard. And I spent a lot of this game on our Twitter feed retweeting highlight videos from the Dayton basketball feed because their highlight to me, watched through the SLU perspective, was just defensive breakdown after defensive breakdown. Whether nobody is going down the floor in transition with Kobe Brea, right? He gets the ball. He's so open a couple times. He almost looks surprised. Like you, on his face, it's just like, all right, if this is what you guys want to do, I'll do it. Incredible. Just leaving him open all the way down the floor. And by the time he has the ball in his hands outside the perimeter, all you can do is give a half-hearted closeout, and he's there. There are other plays, and this happens several times, where SLU will send 2, 3, arguably 4 in one case, guys to the ball at the top of the key, and they're just leaving shooters open on both sides of the perimeter. And so the point guard, by the time they close out, has his pick of wide open shooters. Of course, he finds those guys. They score. I don't know what we're doing. Sending that many guys after the ball, that's like what your coach tells you not to do in grade school, like when you're learning the game. It's just incredible how many breakdowns there are. Just incredible. I was exasperated. It was the same thing for like the announcers in this game, where
this isn't your new favorite, like, game within the game.
I love it.
How quickly the announcers figure out we're booty.
Yeah. It's the same thing, right? Like they give you Ford's had a tough season, a lot of bad luck. And then in the second half, it's just, they can't guard anybody. They can't guard the perimeter. You got to be kidding me. It just doesn't matter. Half court transition. All Dayton has to do is pass twice, and you've got your pick of shooters. I just didn't see any effort to stop them, to stop Brea. Like what was the scout on this game? It's like they went in cold. Incredible.
The outside was an issue. Inside on the boards, not much better, Pete.
No. They out rebounded SLU 38-21, 13 offensive rebounds, and then on top of that, you've got 22 second chance points. Yeah, that'll do it too. All 5 Dayton scorers in double figures. You've got Holmes with 25, 13 rebounds. Kobe Brea, 21 points. He went 5 of 8 from 3. I'm almost grateful it was only that much. Kobe Ellis, 21 points, 5 of 8 from 3. Cheeks had 15. Santos had 10. They were they just, all 5 of them just got what they wanted on the glass, shooting the ball. It didn't matter. Just didn't show up against our rival at all.
Gibson Jimerson deserved like a Purple Heart for this game. 40 minutes, Very good again. 24 points on 8 of 13, 50% from 3-point range, 100% from the line. I mean, he did about all. There's so many games where you're like, where's Gibson? Why does he disappear? But this game, it was Gibson and the rest were ghosts almost.
We've watched a lot of Dayton games where they harass, hack, tug his jersey, follow him around, shadow him. Clearly they've always got him scouted. And he's struggled to get loose at times against them. They've always defended him pretty well. And in this game, he really look, I don't know if it's because they were taking a don't get injured approach on defense and maybe taking things a little easier. But regardless, he was really good. He got open a lot, played 40 minutes, put in the time. I mean, I don't think he should have played 40 minutes. I think he should have been pulled for the last two, but we've already covered that. But yeah, I think he really had a good performance in this one.
It's a shame that a lot of and I think you tweeted it out the next day, after this one, is that I think one thing lost in the debacle of the evening was how electric Terrence Hargrove was. Was he great in this game? Not particularly, but when he had the ball in his hand, he did some crazy shit.
He had that dunk early. That was one of my favorites, if not my favorite of the year.
That one I didn't think was that impressive. I don't like, I want to like, it was like watching Wembanyama dunk. It was like, oh, that's weird looking, but okay. Like it wasn't a poster. Well, it was a poster, but it wasn't one-handed. It was two-handed, but like it looked unimpressive, but like after you really dig into it, it is an incredible feat of athleticism.
It really was, and I think it's because nobody saw it coming, right? Like he got the ball outside the perimeter, and it was going to take a few dribbles to get to the rim. Isaac Jack was in front of him, and I don't think, well, certainly Jack did not see it coming. You could see that in the replay. He was just like, "Oh my god!" Like didn't know he was going to go up, and now he's on his poster. I really, really liked it for that reason, was just the element of surprise. And it's the kind of aggressiveness I like from him, and that I wish we would see from more guys more often on this team. Instead of looking lost on offense, it's like take some control, do something aggressive, get to the rim.
Yeah.
Really, I loved that dunk. I thought it was great.
You didn't, it's hard to say anyone else had a good game in this one. But I do want to give some credit to Brad Azawiro in this one, because there was at least twice he made Holmes look silly on defense.
Yeah, one of those was a really nice spin move, actually. Really good footwork, and I'm trying to remember what the other one would have been.
I don't know, but I felt like there was two of those.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. There were a couple.
But yeah, I mean, some of these guys were okay on offense, but all of them were bad on defense.
Yeah. The bad defense was truly a team effort. Yeah. Just really bad all around. And I know we've belabored it. I mean, they just don't stop people.
You had something to say, and you talked about it. This is your rival. Like there's a reason that there are places in big college sports that like you can lose every game, just beat Auburn or just beat Alabama. Rival games matter in college sports.
Yeah, and if your status is kind of unclear, if people are kind of 50-50 or split in any way about what to do with the coach going forward, I mean, this is really a deciding factor, right? Travis Ford is now 5-12 against Dayton in 17 contests with them in his 8 seasons. And to let them drop 100 for the first time in program history, to allow 100 points from them on senior night in your 8th season at the helm of the program, to take your 12th loss in 8 years against them, it's just inexcusable, right? And yeah, when in big time college athletics, when you can't beat your rival, you get fired. Even not big time necessarily. There are some of the most heated, passionate rivalries in college sports are the ones that if you're outside those,
like the Arch Baron Cup.
The Arch Baron Cup, as we all know, yeah, a little underappreciated. But if you go to places like like North Dakota, like the
Yeah.
rivalry between North Dakota State and North Dakota, or South Dakota State and South Dakota. Like it's incredible. All of these little regional rivalries around college sports that make them so special. It wouldn't be acceptable for North Dakota's basketball coach to lose 8 in a row against North Dakota State, or 12 out of 17 or whatever it is. It's just, yes, that's a sign that you're probably underperforming overall, but to be so lopsided against the team that you think is your rival is horrible. It's devastating for your program. It's devastating for your fan base. And by the way, all of the chatter I have seen since Friday night, which was a really good game between VCU and Dayton, is what a great rivalry that's become, right? And I think
You had to do that to me. You had to do that to me.
I still think, VCU is going to say Richmond's their primary rival, and Dayton and SLU are probably going to say that. But like all of them, both sides are saying like what a great rivalry that's become. So they see us as their geographic rival. They see VCU as their peer performance rival at the top of the league. And to not be part of that is an embarrassment.
Yeah. Yeah. To be out-rivaled by a team that had not played Dayton until 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm. It's not great.
No.
Doesn't feel good.
Yeah. Like your seat's boiling hot and you lose to Dayton by almost 30. That's it right there. Even if there was any doubt, a near 30-point drubbing on senior night at home, that's gonna let the guillotine drop.
Yeah. I can't find anything positive to say about that.
No. We have some positive notes to take from the 73-65 win at St. Bonaventure Saturday the 9th. So, whoa. Wow. 73-65 win at St. Bonaventure on Saturday the 9th. This was unexpected. Much like Sion Medley showing up in front of that Bonaventure cheerleader. I don't think she expected that.
I loved that tweet, Zach, that you captured that moment perfectly. What is it? Willing to
risk it all.
Risk it all. I love that. As she's dreamily looking at Sion Medley ready to inbound a ball. But we all know that St. Bonaventure cheerleaders are not to be trusted. We've already had run-ins with them in the past. So tread carefully, Sion. No matter how dreamily she looks at you, willing to risk it all. But
and based on the timing of the photo I took or where I paused it, we might have some inter squad rivalry, because the one behind her looked like she was, maybe in the process of getting to where her teammate was visually.
Definitely a 1A and 1B in terms of Mooney eyes looking at Sion Medley. But
not to be confused with Ian Mooney eyes.
Yes, but maybe it had to do with his performance in this game, Zach, because he damn near had a triple-double.
She saw it coming. She's clairvoyant, because that was early. Like that was first 5 minutes. Maybe this cheerleader's clairvoyant. Maybe we need her a muse, so to speak. Maybe we should get her to transfer to SLU. Could she be this team's muse?
I think she'd be instantly eligible if she transferred. We know that much.
Yes.
It seems worth it to me. So
we should we can work on the credit transfers. We'll figure that all out. But you transfer to SLU, you be the good luck charm. It's like a rally squirrel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's right.
Exactly.
I can't imagine Bonaventure has that many academic programs that SLU couldn't.
Welding.
That's the one exception. We won't accept her welder certificate for credit hours. But yeah, Zach, this was like, okay, we were just talking about that horrible Dayton game where it looks like they're not even scouting teams anymore and gave up. And then now we have kind of a Travis Ford at his best style game, right? Like good defense, good rebounding, good point guard play, good play from like your locals, hometown heroes, and your guys who have been around for 5 years. Like all the core dudes really performed well. And it was just like, where did this come from? Like, how do they play? Like, and granted, we came into that game saying there's like Bonaventure's really a Jekyll and Hyde team this year. Like when they win, they score like 81 a game. When they lose, they score like 61 or 62 a game. So they really don't show up sometimes. And I think this was one of those performances, but we still looked good on defense. Like we actually were doing things more or less right. And did enough on offense. And it was just one of those really weird things. Like Ford's never won at Bonaventure before. I was at the last game that SLU won at Bonaventure in 2013, in early 2013. Haven't won there since. And certainly Ford has not. And there's so many reasons to look at this game and just go, what happened here? Where did this come from?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, everybody seemed to, one thing I saw, actually, I'll mention this. I always have things that I have in my brain that I hope come up and I neglect to put in the notes. But I saw early on some really nice stuff I thought from Ezewiro. I don't know if I'm praising what like the end of the player, the situational awareness or how he defended, but I saw there was a point where Venning posted him up, and I think it happened twice where Harry popped off the bench and started yelling at Ezewiro to a direction, and Ezewiro stunted and got a different position on Venning. And I think it both possessions that happened, it ended in a missed shot.
Yeah, that's right. You mentioned that, and then I wound up noticing it after that as well. And then I think this was one of those games that was a good one for Ezewiro, right? Like for one, he didn't get in like horrible foul trouble early on, right? But Venning did. Wait, do I have that wrong?
No, not early on. He didn't. He had 6 fouls. Remember?
Yeah, but it took a while to get there,
right.
So Venning was the one who got in foul trouble in the first half, and this matchup, on paper, like coming into this game, I remember thinking like Venning is the main dude. He's the main scorer and rebounder on their team, and he's a 6'10", 280 center. And I was kind of like, just like they're not strong at guard. Like we had seen Bonaventure teams in the past kill us at guards with guys like Lofton and Adams and all the Welch. What's his name? Welch.
Yeah, Dominic Welch.
They always had like so many good guards and they were deep at guard, and they're just not that right now. They're not very good at all at guard. Venning's kind of the main guy. I guess you could argue Pride and Adams Woods, who are both, yeah, Adams Woods is a guard, but like just not nearly the player that some of those guys they've had in the past are. And that winds up being a pretty good matchup for us. We get a career day out of Sion Medley. Ezewiro, like you said, eventually did foul out and then some, but it took until the end. And more or less, we kind of kept them pretty quiet. And this, I liked this matchup quite a bit for SLU. It's just crazy to see a vintage performance when we've seen them lay down for so many teams.
Yeah, this felt like the first time that the Billikens had, imposed their will on a competent basketball team.
Mm-hmm.
At least in conference. I mean, early in the season, obviously you're playing cupcakes, but I mean, LaSalle is bad. St. Joe's is bad, but and those games were just kind of back and forth, just shot after shot after shot. This
Very
one
high
was
scoring.
Yeah, this one was much more of a down and dirty, grinded out win, and it worked. And
I wasn't in the crowd, obviously, but it was quiet there.
Yes.
Like you could tell on TV, like it was quiet.
I went back and watched it, and I enjoy, when you watch them a second time and you start looking in the background for fan reactions.
Mm-hmm.
It was quite enjoyable watching.
Oh, yeah.
Bonaventure fans lose their mind.
So yeah, I have a small sample size, just one game that I saw there, but their fans are kind of nuts, right? Like they really get into it. We've talked to SB Unfurled before on here, And I know he gives us a hard time when we say like, well, there's nothing else to do up there, but there is kind of something to that, right? Like this is
Yeah.
kind of the big event for a lot of
Well,
people in
they
that.
said it. They do it every time on the broadcast. I feel like every time you play Bonaventure, it was this is the biggest game in town.
Yeah,
Like it's like
right.
their
And it's true,
Billiken.
man. It's
Yeah.
true. That is that it's a sleepy little part of New York. Like you're kind of tucked away in Western New York and the snowy mountains, and it's beautiful out there, but there's just not a whole lot going on. And so it's pretty like they were heckling me for a big chunk of the game. Like students were fixated on me for a while and were heckling. I was like, man, these guys are serious. And the gym itself is not big, it's got the flat ends kind of.
Yeah.
It does go up a little kind of deep on the side, so I think it seats more people than you would think, but it's just an old bandbox and it gets loud and it gets kind of crazy. So to hear it that quiet was really something. And I think the reason why is this was kind of a game of what I would call mini runs, like anytime SLU got going, Bonaventure would like hit a three. And then anytime they got it close, SLU would get a stop, hit a couple shots, just kept them at arm's distance the whole time. It was really interesting to me because it was kind of a wire to wire win, right? I mean, like we led the
Yeah.
entire game, I think after the first like 125 or something like that. And so it wound up being this game with a slow pace. Nobody went on a gigantic run, and because the other team was just always there to answer. Really unique game and very much unlike one that we've seen so far this year.
Yeah. I thought, the defense, again, we talked about that quickly or early in this one. But one of the things that, because you watch this team all season, when you see something really good, it stands out so much more. And I thought the transition defense, more often than not, was really, really good. And there was at least one or two times where Bonaventure had numbers and the Billikens made them, you know, uh, kick it out and slow it down and see what happens.
Yeah, that definitely stood out a few times, and I think that's one of the things is that really surprised me and that stood out in this game is like that it was a high level defensive effort coming off a game that looked like there was no effort. And that's one of the things that I haven't really understood whenever we win is it just feels like they're playing hard, right? Like and every
Are
time
you buying into are you?
it's too much to do in Brooklyn. It's not going to happen. But
Mm. I mean, are you buying into that? It's an effort, and this team just doesn't want to put forth the effort.
no, I mean, like, well, clearly there's an effort problem. That's
Sure.
that's a piece of the pie. But it's been weird. Like every time you think like they've completely given up on the season, they'll pull one of these out, and that's kind of strange. It's just the way that it happened in this one was a little bit different. The pace, I want to get back to the pace. Ford said that was intentional to make them guard us, was his quote, and to not run out of gas. But Bonaventure is already, as we covered coming into this game, they're not a team that plays fast at all. So I think it kind of it went hand in hand. But Zach, I do want to circle back to Sion Medley. I mean, he was fantastic. He assisted on 3 of the first 4 field goals. He ended up with 10 assists, 10 rebounds, and 7 points. I'm going to go ahead and ignore his 5 turnovers, forgive those, and just say like this was about all that you could want out of a freshman point guard. And you could see early on he was really seeing things.
Yeah, I liked most of his game. I think we talked a little bit, you and me, about his ability to get to the rim and finish within the big men.
Mhm.
And I don't know if he's, Jimerson's learned how to really shield that ball. Parker just does crazy things, so he's not really a great example. But I mean, I think with age and experience and fundamental or not fundamental work, but drills, like I think he'll get to a point where he can finish among 6'10", 6'11", 7-footers.
Yeah, he probably can. I mean, he's just kind of got to figure it out, but he's good with the ball in his hands. He's just got to build up that confidence and experience, I think. Play of the game, Zach, I think goes to Hargrove, who ended up with 17 and 9 overall. But the really big plays that he had down the stretch, there was an offensive rebound and putback with, I want to say about, was it even 2 minutes left, maybe, or around that point. That to me kind of felt like the one that killed any chance of a Bonaventure comeback late in the game, because that just, it made the math a little bit more difficult, and it just felt backbreaking at the time.
Um, yeah, I loved it. I mean, dude, like I really hope that this next game is the Terrence Hargrove show. I want
Sure.
to see that dude just ball out. I actually have really liked what he has turned himself into. I just wish there were more opportunities for him to really be the one that's called for.
Yeah.
The play is called for. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I thought everybody had really nice games. Jimerson and Hughes had 15 apiece. Uh, Hughes, I loved the just the shot making,
Mhm.
taking aggressive 3-point shots, open. I think that's one thing this team doesn't do is I think this team like I think they hesitate when they're open sometimes, and I just want to see these guys just fire at will. If they're open, fire it. I don't love like Hughes. Like I don't want to sound like old man yells at cloud, but he pimps his threes a little too much for my. Like I just want you to get back on defense, bro. Like
He does.
you've gotten out of position pimping your threes before.
He does. And he can be a bit of a streaky shooter as well. His shot looked really good in this game. So I do understand a little bit that he was kind of feeling it and maybe putting a little extra on at the end of those shots that maybe he did, that maybe he didn't need to. But his shot did look really good in this game, and we won. So I will forgive him. I will forgive him. Speaking of forgiveness, I want to talk about the Ezewiro play. So he finished with 9 and 8, and he fouled out on a bizarre play because he fouled a 3-point shooter, right? He just couldn't stop himself. Guy was taking a three. He went out past the perimeter and basically walked into him as he was shooting the three. I think you got to make that. I don't have no problem with that call, but then he was hit with a tech right after that. And I don't know whether it was he said something or somebody said he kind of shoved the guy afterwards or something like that. I didn't see a shove. Maybe he said something, but it was a weird play that gave Bonaventure 5 free throws in a row, and you worried a little bit. I think this was right before that Hargrove put back, but you worried like, okay, if they hit these free throws or even 4 of them, it makes this game a little bit. It
Yeah.
makes it close enough to where it's not over, right? But they wound up missing the first two, I think, and then hitting the last three, and it still wound up being a 3 possession game. And that kind of felt like the difference between this being like really in reach and not in reach. So I think Ezewiro got bailed out a little bit by them missing those first 2 free throws.
Yeah, Bonaventure fans were not happy. Lil Bonna X was having a meltdown a little bit further than, dealing with Bonaventure basketball, but this certainly didn't help.
Well, and that's why we have SB unfurled as well to follow, because he's so much more measured
Yes.
and smart. Bana X can be really funny, but also, yeah, a lot more emotional. And I think the point that SB unfurled,
You're the SB unfurled to my Lil Bonna X.
there we go. There we go.
That's why we are the two best shows in the league.
The yin and yang,
Yes.
both of us have. But so the point he made was like like we got to take a kind of a hard look at Mark Schmidt right now, because um were in pole position for that 4 seed in the conference tournament, right? Like they had it on UMass, and all they had to do was not lose to one of the worst 2 teams in conference, which is who they finished their season against, and they lost to both of them, giving UMass a no doubt number 4 seed in the process, and
And
slipping
Frank
all the
Martin
way.
doesn't deserve that.
No, UMass was not good this year, right? Like we
They were
thought
fake good.
they were fake good, but like inconsistent, and yeah, I don't know, not top 4 seed good, right? That's what kind of doesn't sit well with me, honestly, because it seemed like there was a solid number 4 taking shape, and it didn't ultimately take shape the way we thought it would. But regardless, Bonaventure had that. They coughed it up. They were really inconsistent this season. And now I think if you zoom out and take a whole view of his time there, 3 tournaments in 17 years. And I don't know. It's always been more with less, right? But I don't know if that's the case anymore. I just he had a couple good
No,
squads.
extend him.
I'm fine if they do because I don't feel super threatened by them, but I just don't know if it's like a Duquesne situation where they're kind of fine with being a pretty average program that gets I don't know, just enough done to keep people happy.
Yeah, that's gotta suck.
It does. I genuinely like I've been looking at Duquesne, and this week they've been celebrating the fact that they just put 20 win seasons together back to back for the first time in 50 years. And like I think about like the 20 win season remark from our athletic director sent us into
Oh,
an outrage.
yeah,
So I guess we do have to keep it in perspective in that there are other teams in our conference who would kill to be in our shoes overall as a program, not this year certainly, but overall. And that's kind of crazy to me because to us we seem so disappointing.
yeah. The Billikens out rebounded the Bonnies 43-26 in this one. Are you sure that's right? Did you double check the notes?
I did, and that is right, and that's crazy. And second chance points were 21-9, and that you could argue that that's the difference in the game.
You know who I think is going to be a fantastic player?
Who's that?
Low key. Steph Van Bussel.
He has really gotten better as the season has gone on. He really, really has. And I know we gave a little bit of time to him recently.
Yeah.
But what he is bringing as a post defender and rebounder has been fantastic lately. It's been
Yeah.
just what we've needed.
Yeah, I think I think in a system that with a coach that focuses on big man development, I think the sky's the I think Conklin certainly like that trajectory is absolutely something that he could aspire to.
Yeah, and he's bigger, right? He's a different
Yeah.
kind of player. He's a couple inches taller. He's a longer player. I don't think he's the athlete quite that Conklin was, but yeah, there's no reason that he can't be not just a serviceable, but a good starting center in this
Yeah.
league, and maybe not next year, but within the next few years. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens and who's going to stick around year over year.
I certainly think he's worthy to keep as a a backup center. And that's the thing that now is it's hard to keep guys around to develop, and I
And
think that's
yeah. No, go ahead.
it's going to suck. I do think college basketball in some ways the game is going to get a little muddier. I think it's going to be less. Um, it's not going to be as good. I don't know at the maybe at the top level, yes, but I think you're looking lower and you're seeing guys that are you know only with teams 1 year that are down in the mid major to low level, and they're not developing with the same coaching staff over a period. And I just think it's gonna diminish uh, how good teams can be.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think it's bigs who will suffer the most too, right? Because most big men take time to develop, and bouncing from program to program every year isn't necessarily the best thing. Like maybe you find a better situation for you, great. But I think on the whole, not getting the reps in consistently with the same program, the same staff, same strength and conditioning coach over 2, 3, 4 years is going to hurt the long-term development of those guys and the game as a whole. I think we'd see better big man play if more of them really stuck with a coach and a program and a system. Conklin, already the example that you used is the perfect example. An under-recruited guy from Oregon shows up and in 4 years becomes a guy who almost beats a 1 seed as a senior,
And is
and
still playing professional
is
basketball.
still playing professional basketball. Went toe to toe with Draymond Green in a game against Michigan State, and there were other bigs at the time who were very good, and he didn't back down at all. Brought it all every game. That's it. That you don't you wouldn't have seen that necessarily if you just looked at him as a freshman. And so I think, yeah, regardless of what happens with our coaching situation, there's certainly some raw material there that if I were a coach, I would have enough of an ego to say like, yeah, give me that guy. I can mold him into something.
Uh, let's talk about pickles.
Yeah,
I
maybe we
got no
should, Zach.
I got no transition.
No transition this week. That's all right. I gotta say, Zach, so I ran out. I hate when this happens, right? I run out of all my 2 minute a garden stuff and I've got to rely on what's at the grocery store. And the last 2 weeks, I am ashamed to say I have non 2 minute garden salsa in my fridge. And what this has done, what this experience does every time I have to go buy some that's not 2 minute garden, is shorten the intervals between my orders because every time I'm kind of like, you know what? Honestly, this just isn't as good. It's just not as good. I'm gonna go get what I like instead and put it in order. And that's probably what I'm gonna do in the next couple days here when I get a minute. So head over to 2minutegarden.com, get enough salsa to last me a month or so, get some pickles to refresh that part of the shelf too. And yeah, just treat myself, Zach, because I deserve it.
Yeah,
I'm a
you
good
do.
person. I'm a good
Yeah, you
person.
do.
I deserve 2 men in a garden.
We've
I don't
worked
deserve.
we've worked hard on this show this year.
That's right. I don't deserve what's on the shelf at my neighborhood grocery store that will go unnamed. I'm going to go over to 2minutegarden.com in the next few days here. Put in an order. You should too. $9.99 nationwide shipping. Take advantage of it now.
By the way, I just want to point out because we did release our new logo this week, or maybe it was last week. I don't remember. It's been crazy. But I will say, Hank Joel from 2 minute garden. If you happen to run into him, he's a bigger gentleman with a beard. He's got glasses, usually wearing a hat. He's a great guy. We released our new logo, and of course, he was first to comment on our Instagram post. Work 2 Men in a Garden in there, and we're a sponsor for life. So, big, huge thank you to 2 Men in a Garden for continuing, for sticking with us through this season. Because I mean, it's a tough sell when you're like, I don't know what our numbers are gonna do with a bad season. So. Thank you to them so much, and it really does make a difference for them being on board with us.
Yeah, for sure. I've got to say, I was a little envious when I saw the Loyola guys tweet that they had hit 1,000 listens, to a recent show. They're like, it's our first time at 1,000. And I was just like, right there is the proof, Zach. Right there is the proof.
Yes.
Like, there's no reason like Loyola should have more listeners than the Slew podcast, right? Like, that's what happens when you have a good season. And
yes.
it's not, we don't just want Slew to succeed for our numbers, right? Like,
Right.
it's
Wow.
our point is
nice.
that everybody wins. Everybody wins when they win. So yeah, like it can be done. It can be done.
Let's go around the A10. Let's start on Tuesday the 5th. Duquesne 69. Nice. 59 VCU 59 at VCU, Peter.
Crazy result. Yeah, VCU unfortunately needed that one to stay in that top 4 line as well.
Wednesday the 6th, Loyola 69. Nice. Davidson 59. What's happening here, Pete?
I know. And I'll do you one better, Zach. The next game, George Mason 69.
Nice.
Rhode Island 51. So they broke the trend there a little bit.
George Washington 86, Bonaventure 75. GW's first win in 51 days.
Hang the banner.
Thank God. Like, as bad as the season's been, there haven't been numbers like that.
I think 51 is also the number of people that were there to see senior day, because I saw a photo from right before tip off, and it was
more people attend the Washington Castles matches, the World Team Tennis at GW's arena.
I think you're right.
Richmond 73, St. Joe 66. Richmond clinched at least a share of the first place, and they got dragged on social media for cutting the nets. I don't have a problem with this. I don't care. Like, VCU just they can take their sour grapes wherever. I don't, like, who gives a shit? Cut those nets.
Yeah, they clinched a share of first place, and all they needed to do was win one more to win it outright. And we will go to that in a minute and talk about how they didn't. But I will say, Zach, that a couple of years ago, when Xavier clinched a share of first place in the Big East, they it's a title that they shared with Villanova that season. They had like confetti come down, and it was all like how they won the conference, like clinched a share of the conference, and it really did wind up being a share and not an outright win. And I got to say, to this day, my wife thought it was kind of like too much, and she thought it was a little over the top, and it she didn't love that look. I got to say,
I would love to win a regular season championship. I mean,
been 10
I
years.
yeah, I would like to. I just think I don't know. I just enjoy the idea of just a great season more than I enjoy the idea of like a run in the A10 tournament.
Yeah, you get to enjoy it for longer, right?
Yeah. By the way, 10 seed Sacramento State is about to beat Eastern Washington, the 1 seed in the first round of the Big Sky.
Keep it going, Sacramento State. They're one of the teams that has never been to the NCAA tournament. I
Come
know that.
on. I thought for sure Stetson had been in it.
Me too. That surprised me.
Like is it because they have kind of a unique strong brand?
Maybe, but
Is it
I
college
could have
basketball video
sworn
games?
that they've come out of that what is it, the American Sun or what
A Sun.
a Sun? Yeah, I could have sworn they've come out of that league before.
Um get UMass 66, Fordham 64. Pete, give us the Friday 10. This game was a slugfest.
It really was. Friday 10 classic between Dayton and VCU. It went to overtime. And Dayton prevailed at home on senior night, 91-86. One of the great A10 games of the season, as much as I hate to say it, and as much
Yeah.
as it pains me because they're calling each other rivals now. Flip over to Saturday the 9th, and Rhode Island beats Fordham 58-50, gives them a little juice heading into Brooklyn. St. Joe's 89, Davidson 71, and that's a crazy score because Davidson led by 5 at half and was outscored by 23 in the second half. Davidson fans were not happy about that
No,
one.
it's interesting because we're sitting here firmly in the camp that our coach is not going to be here next year.
Right.
And it seems like on the whole, fans in the A10 are pretty content with their coaches right now. I don't know about GW. But like Richmond, obviously, St. Joe's. No, St. Joe's seems like the only one where it's firmly questioning whether he'll be here next year.
And that's wild to me because if I were St. Joe's, he would be a no doubt firing.
Yes.
The minute they lose this year, that's a no doubt to me. If they keep him, thanks. Thank you.
Yeah. Remember, if they talk nice about you, it's because you stink.
That's right. Duquesne 67, George Washington 65. I think Duke's fans were really sweating it out. Loyola 64, LaSalle 54. But this was the result of the day, Zach.
Yes.
George Mason 64, Richmond 46 in the game that could have given them the outright win of the first place in the league. They still got the 1 seed in the tournament, but I got to say, like 46 points for a team that started out this season scoring 90 a bunch of times. That's wild, man. That is just crazy.
That feels like a classic Rick Majerus team stinker.
That's right. That's true. When his teams didn't show up, they just couldn't score.
Yeah, totally. It would be, and again, they would still defend. Like 64 points isn't anything to sneeze at defensively,
Right.
but you just can't put the ball in the hole. And I think sometimes with Richmond, it's whether or not they're in a rhythm, because that offense is so movement based, and whether they're in sync, you go out of sync, and nothing's gonna happen for you.
Yeah, and it doesn't change. I guess we'll get to this right now, but it doesn't change their seed. They're still the 1 seed, but it did give George Mason a boost, and they could see each other in this tournament.
March 12th through the 17th at Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York. The Atlantic 10 Men's Basketball Championship. SLU does not play until 4:30 p.m. on Tuesday. How angry are Billiken fans that they have to wait to find out that this season is over until
Yeah,
3:30 p.m. Sorry, 3:30, which is the oddest time ever.
3:30 Central Time. Yeah, it's 4:30 Eastern Time here. But yeah, we needed to be the 12 or 13 seed to be the early game. They're the ones going at 11:30 Eastern, 10:30 a.m. Central, which is probably, I guess, how SLU fans would have wanted it if they, if they could design the times themselves, right, Zach?
Yeah, I would put us at 10:30 a.m. That would be nice.
Yeah.
But I didn't make the decision, so not first round, the pillow fight games. We have the 12 seed Fordham taking on the 13 seed Davidson at 10:30 a.m. on Tuesday. Number 10 LaSalle against number 15 George Washington Tuesday at 1 p.m. Central Time. And then of course Rhode Island against your Billikens on Tuesday at 3:30. And those games will all be on ESPN Plus. Run us down what the next round would look like.
Yeah, Mason and St. Joe's are the 8 and 9. Winner will take on 1 seed Richmond. VCU will take on the winner of Fordham and Davidson at 1 p.m. St. Louis time. All these games are on USA Network, by the way. And then in the evening, you've got, or I guess later in the afternoon, you've got the LaSalle George Washington winner who will have number 7 St. Bonaventure at 4 p.m. And then Duquesne at 6:30 St. Louis time. I'm having to convert all these. Sorry.
You're doing a great job.
We'll take on the SLU Rhode Island winner, Zach. What do the quarterfinals look like when our top 4 seeds finally kick in?
Yeah, it'll be number 1 Richmond taking on the winner of George Mason and St. Joe's on USA Network. All of these as well will be on the USA Network. Massachusetts will take on VCU Fordham or Davidson at 1 p.m. Loyola
VCU.
Chicago.
Let's be honest, VCU.
Yeah, VCU. I feel like Davidson could
You never know.
I feel like, yeah. Loyola Chicago, number 2 will take on LaSalle, Bonaventure, or George Washington. Again, that's probably a 3-way coin flip.
I don't know about George Washington, but
I don't know what Bonaventure is.
Could LaSalle beat both those teams? Sure.
Yes.
Yeah, of course.
And to be honest, Billiken fans, I don't know if I would be surprised if the Billikens go ahead and win 2 games and get a rematch with Dayton.
I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Yeah, no.
Duquesne, yes. Did they torch us that one game? Yes, but if we guard the perimeter at all against them, we could beat that team. Yes. Absolutely.
Will we guard the perimeter?
That's the question.
Let's talk about a coin flip there, Pete. Let's talk all conference teams. These are our picks as of now. So basically I realized that I had not been watching Atlantic 10 basketball as much as I should. So our podcast, all conference, we might have some disagreements on the individual awards, but we'll run down. Pete, give them your all conference team awards.
So the first team, few guys that were no doubters to me, like Deron Holmes on Dayton, Jordan King on Richmond, Keyshawn Hall from George Mason. I was a little less sure about these next few spots, but I gave it to Matt Cross at UMass, Max Shulga at VCU.
I like it.
And then James Bishop at George Washington. I know they stunk, but he just scored so much. I don't love that one, right? Second team, I get down to Grant Huffman at Davidson. I really like how he played this year. Day Grant, another one. Duquesne, I don't love including him, but he scored a lot. And same with Reynolds at St. Joe's. Darius Maddox at George Mason. I think I liked him better as an all-around player than these other guys. Josh Cohen at UMass. And then Jimmy Clark at Duquesne. Really, his defensive prowess is what put him into the second team for me. And then on the third team, I've got the LaSalle guards, Brickus and Brantley. I put in Chad Venning from Bonaventure and Darren Buchanan from George Washington on the third team. And then the last 2 spots, I realized I didn't have anyone from Loyola. And so I think you could take your pick of their top three guys.
Yeah.
Whether you go with Watson or Alston or the point guard Norris, none of them really put up great numbers on paper, but they just play really well as a unit, all those guys. And then I think Dayton, a second player from Dayton, probably makes sense in this spot. And if you want to give that to Brea or Elvis or Bennett, or even Santos, I think they're all kind of even for me. So I would just say a toss up for either one of those teams in those two spots, and that would be kind of my how my all conference teams would look, Zach.
Yeah. Tough to not put any Billikens on the roster.
Yeah, I thought about Jimerson, but I maybe it's one of those things where like if I were another A10 fan and he had two really good games against us, I'd probably put him in. But like I just saw how inconsistent our team was in general, and there were a lot of games that he didn't really have good games, and I don't know. I just we were just so bad this year. I had trouble.
I think you would have found Sincere Parker on one of these teams had he played the entire season. I think Jimerson, nah, he just hasn't put up the numbers. You could have maybe taken Medley as all rookie team.
Mhm.
But I don't know. Player of the year, Deron Holmes. I actually played devil's advocate on this one, and Jordan King's a killer, man.
Yeah, that's one that even I brought up recently, right? Like I think I said something like there's a case to be made for King.
Yeah.
And I absolutely think that's true. I just think like whole body of work, I think I'm still giving the edge to Deron Holmes. And if we want to call them 1A and 1B, fine, but that that that's one where yeah, we might be split on.
Um, Coach of the year, Chris Mooney, and I think we are split on this one too because I think in this one it's like the biggest surprise of the season.
Mhm.
And I think that's gonna go to Loyola.
Yeah.
Can't think of his name right now.
Yeah, Valentine.
Drew Valentine. I didn't want to start with Denzel because I hear that's a sore subject where people
Yeah.
call him Denzel all the time. Uh
Uh Yeah, no, I think there's a case to be made for both of them. Richmond was picked 11th and they ended up number one. Loyola was picked 8th and ended up number two. And if we're just looking at preseason rankings, and generally that's how they're picking coach of the year, is who outperforms that by the most. So, but I agree. I mean, is there a big difference between 8 and 11 and 1 and 2 this year? Really not. No.
I do want to see if A10 Talk does listen. I would love to see you add more like surprise player of the year, surprise team of the year, guys who
Sure.
kind of just showed up out of nowhere and
Yeah.
you're like, wait a minute, what? Like I
Yeah.
think surprise player of the year could have been a Sincere Parker. Um, but
Yeah.
it doesn't matter.
SB Unfurled. I mean, geez, getting his third mention of the episode. He does like a
He's
player
gonna get a big
ratings.
head.
He does like a player rating system, and I think Parker was in the top 3 on players who jumped from last year's rating to this year's rating. So certainly it's being recognized by some people out there.
Defensive player of the year, Jimmy Clark. I didn't watch a single. I watched one Duquesne game.
He was an all defensive player last year, and I think he led the conference in steals this year. And to me, he creates a lot of havoc on defense, turns guys over. Um, I think that's where I would give him the edge. We had some good shot blockers, and those guys, also tend to have the claim to this award. But I think overall, he just made a bigger defensive impact.
Rookie of the year, Darren Buchanan of GW, and then sixth man of the year, Joe Bamasil. I don't care how we pronounce his name, but it's
Yeah,
I like it. I like that pick. Bamasil was awesome this year.
he came off the bench most of the year, so I think that's a no doubter for me. Buchanan, I first had Xavier, as much as I hate to say his name.
You decided that you didn't want to read a name that spelled out all the syllables for you.
That's right. That's right. So I think Buchanan put up just a little bit better numbers. But I think those two are really close. I think if either of them got freshman of the year, rookie of the year, whatever they're going to call it, because I really don't think of rookie of the year as like a grad transfer or something. But I think either one of those guys I'd be totally fine with.
Hey, let's switch over to women's basketball because they almost did the thing again.
They sure did, Zach. I mean, they had me believing for a minute there.
The amazing thing about this team is how often, and I've said this everywhere, how often I give up on this team only for them to slap me in the face and say, "Wake up, asshole. We're still in this game."
They really do. They really do. I mean, we've said it over and over and over with them. It's just they're never out of a game, right?
Yeah.
Like no matter what the deficit is, and we'll get to the last one, but they had a pretty good deficit in that game that they erased. And
Uh,
it's so impressive to me that the fight in that team every time they go out there.
Yeah, so I actually, so let's start with the All A10 awards. Kyla McMakin, second team All Conference, which I think is a bit of a snub, but she has a few games where she's just not consistent enough, I think, to make the first team, and I don't think the team overall did well enough.
Right.
But Julia Martinez and Kennedy Calhoun made the All Defensive team. Absolutely should.
Yep.
Uh, but in the A10 tournament, the Billikens go in as a 10 seed in this one. And wait, are they the 10 seed? Were they the 10 seed? Yeah.
No, I thought George Washington
George
was.
Washington was the 10 seed.
Yeah.
And the Billikens beat them 75-68 in a game, again, where it felt like the thing that needed to go right was not going to go right. There was not going to be, you were going to keep going up, climbing up the mountain, and then you were going to just get knocked back another 10 feet. And then you climb
Right.
up 5, and then you get knocked back. Like you were never going to reach the peak and get over it.
Right.
They proved me wrong.
No, you're absolutely right. And yeah, SLU was the 7 seed. George Washington was the 10 seed. I think, 7 to 10 was kind of in play for SLU the week heading into the tournament. But yeah, you're right. Like this was GW led most of the game, right? They had an 11-point lead after the third quarter. There were 7 lead changes, 7 ties. It was just not a game that they were in control of by any means. And it's one that I didn't think they were going to, quite frankly, going to struggle that much with. I thought this was a pretty good matchup for SLU on paper. GW, we had called out that they really just didn't have much depth, many options. And I thought 9 was kind of the cutoff point where below that things got a lot easier. And then 1 to 9 in this tournament would be a tough out. So it did surprise me what a grind it was. But again, Zach, down 11 after 3, and all they do in the fourth quarter is go out and score 30 and then hold GW to 12. And when you do that, you're going to win the game.
Yeah. I mean, there were so many times where the Billikens would go on a little spurt and then they'd have a bad turnover. Like they
Mhm.
just throw the ball away, and you're just like, this is going to be one of those games, and it's hard to watch, but I stuck with it. And I think any fan who did was handsomely rewarded.
Yeah, they were. With about 4 minutes to go, kind of felt like the decisive play here. Kyla McMakin got a steal and converted, got fouled and won to give SLU a 4-point lead, and that wound up being really what sealed it, right? Because they kind of held that two possession or better lead the rest of the way. It was great. She finished with 22 points and 4 steals. Really nice performance from her. Peyton Kennedy had 15. Brooklyn Gray had 13. Tierra Simon, 11 points and 13 rebounds, really stepped up inside. And SLU overall, when they don't shoot well, it's a problem. In this game, they shot 51%. They only took 8 3-pointers, but they hit half of them. So they didn't necessarily need to go to the 3 ball a whole lot. But look, we called out George Washington's lack of depth coming into the game, and it was definitely a factor. They just had 5 bench points, and they all came from a single player. And they just didn't shoot well, right? 38.7 from the field. So I think SLU's defense really got to them. and George Washington's lack of options, lack of depth played a role.
SLU did cough it up too much as well. 21 turnovers. They forced 17 from GW and had 14 steals. So, kind of a wash, when it comes down to it, on the turnover battle. This game, another one where actually, it's weird because we were winning most of this game.
Yes.
But at the same time, you're just waiting for VCU to go on some mega run and put it away like that they did in the regular season, and that just never happened.
No, it didn't. And who knows, had this game gone into overtime, maybe SLU would have run out of gas and VCU finally would have gotten there. But it was kind of a defensive grinder from the start. No one really was able to pull away. I think it was 14-13 at the end of the first quarter, and then SLU had the lead most of the way. But VCU wound up hitting a 3 to take a 2-point lead with 3:17 remaining. And then this was crazy, Zach. No one scored again, right? From 3:17 all the way down until the 44-second mark. Peyton Kennedy hits a massive 3 to give SLU a 1-point lead. And that stretch, that long scoreless stretch, included a possession where VCU had 4 chances, 3 offensive rebounds, and they couldn't convert. Just an incredible, like, I was just like, oh, like every offensive rebound they got was like another knife in the heart, because I was just like, that's the one, that's the one, that's the one.
It was around the heart. Like, it didn't, you were waiting for that final cut.
that's
and
right.
It just never came.
It never came. And then I stood up and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to survive this thing. Incredible.
I think one thing I want to say about that Peyton Kennedy 3 and the ensuing defensive possession is out. That play she hit it, I want to say, out of an out of bounds play on the side. And it was a great play call. She was wide open, but then VCU gets a timeout after the 3. And I don't know who decided to do this, but you had, I think it was Peyton Kennedy and Julia Martinez just basically like shoot on the ball handler and just like trapped her.
Yep.
And got a turnover. It was one of I think they got the turnover there, didn't they?
They did. That was the one. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, unbelievable play call and then unbelievable defensive strategy there to just say, okay, we're not even going to let VCU run whatever they just set up. We're just going to shoot 2 players at them and see if they cough it up.
I love that play call because
aggressive
anytime, especially, and I think it was Kennedy and Martinez, but and maybe it would have been a different combo if it went to like Calhoun's side or anything. But anytime you have either Martinez or Calhoun near the ball, putting pressure, trying to trap a guard, they force turnovers more often than you would think is possible. And so you're right, to not even let VCU run whatever they had just drawn up was brilliant.
Yeah.
And so that happens with about 35 seconds to go. They get the ball over to McMakin and she hits both free throws. And now SLU's in that position where they just got to hit their free throws down the stretch.
Yeah, I always side with the aggression when it's coming down to the end. I think you always try to go for the dagger rather than. I mean, there are exceptions, and I think we're going to talk about that in the Rhode Island game because there were, I thought, some issues with the last couple minutes of that game on SLU's end.
But when you're the 7 seed going up against the 2 seed,
right,
I mean, you play to win.
Yeah, you play to win.
Yeah.
Like you said, VCU turns it over with 10 seconds. Unbelievable defense. Kennedy led SLU with 22 points and passed 1,000 points for her career. And the funny note on this after in the press conference was that they like to shout out individual accomplishments in the moment. But then Peyton Kennedy was like, let's fucking win this one or whatever.
Yeah. Just shut up. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't give a shit. Let's go. I love that.
Yeah.
McMakin 16, Gray had 12. I thought Gray was really, really good in this one. She's so unconventional and
she really
just makes like shots out of nowhere. It's really fun to watch. Tierra Simon and Julia Martinez had 7 boards each, and Martinez added 6 assists. Slew kept the turnovers in check, and I think that was something that was pointed out on the board that they would need to do, and they ended up doing it.
Yep.
Gave it up 11 times and forced 17 from VCU. Let's talk about this loss in the semifinal. 68-62 lost to 6 seed Rhode Island on Saturday the 9th. This one started out with a scary moment, Pete. Less than 2 minutes in the game, Markavia Shavers hits her head on the floor while going for a loose ball and had to be stretchered off. We got word halfway through the fourth quarter that she would be fine. Neither of us got to see this.
No, I didn't see the beginning of the game. And then I think you had recorded it and the recording started like right after this happened.
I forgot that I should record it because it's a CBS production.
Yeah. So we just didn't, neither of us got a chance to actually see the play, but it did lead to a 10-minute delay, which was pretty crazy. And then when you start the game like that, it's always a question of like, well, number one, you lose the person who just started at center for you, right? So that's a big loss. So now you've got backup situation. Wasn't your game plan already. You lose that depth. And it's also a question of like, how does your team respond, right? Like if you're all fired up going into this game and then the first thing that happens is one of your teammates goes to the hospital, it's just like there's a few different ways to respond to that, right? And for a while, it looked like it was going to be the bad way for SLU because they wind up being down 16 at halftime.
Again, I gave up on it. Shame on me.
And I'm looking at that halftime score and just like them coming out of that, and I had missed most of the first half, but was able to catch the rest of it. I was like, well, I'll go ahead and watch the rest of the game because I'm able, but man, it's just a shame it had to end like this with an injury and with them kind of folding. And sure enough, Zach, all they did over the third quarter was outscore Rhode Island by 10. And now it's a 6-point game going into the fourth, and 6 points to this team is not enough. It's just not enough.
No. This team is so scrappy, and I think it comes down to Rebecca Tillett's her vibe on the bench. I don't think she ever really panics. I think Michael Gaines on Twitter said that like there's got to be something to this new age foo-foo shit. And I say that like with respectful poking fun because I don't get into it, but there's got to be something to it where I think they talked about it last year when they won the whole thing, is that nobody ever panics. Everybody kind of knows that, what they're supposed to do and stays in the moment and stays focused.
Yeah, no, I think there is something to it because it's been a season that has not gone as well as they'd hoped, right? I mean, like that's a much different win-loss record coming into this tournament, I mean, than you would want. And yet they show up at this tournament and once again look like the most dangerous team out there.
Yeah.
And everybody else in the conference is on their heels against them. It's wild. So there definitely has to be something to it. And like, I'm not you call it new age. I'm not a new age dude at all. But I think like
you used to be a new age dude.
Never.
Never.
Okay, no. I mean, like setting aside time for them to really, number one, unwind. I know they do a lot of like games and other side competitions, but then number two, they do their like, meditations, like quiet moments when they're laying down, dark room, just some time with their thoughts. I think there probably is something to that, right? Like if she had them like rubbing crystals before a game or something like that, like you've lost me. I'm not with you on this, coach.
She's got Himalayan salt on the bench.
She's got sage.
No, hey, don't. That's sort of subject with. You're gonna lose our baseball audience. They're big on that.
Baseball people are the most superstitious goofballs in the world. I'm fine losing them over all the stupid stuff they do. But anyway, no, I think the mindfulness though is absolutely. I think there's something to it. So yeah, I think Gaines is right there. And in a game like this, where you do lose a teammate early, and you are down by a bunch, I mean, like mentality is everything. Getting back into it, right? I mean, they're probably overmatched at the bigs position in this game. Rhode Island has a pretty good front court, and now SLU's down a player and already was a little shaky all season long in the front court. So defensive rebounding was a problem. Rhode Island had 14 offensive rebounds. So you have to find all of the other ways. Frustrating as it is to watch them get that many rebounds, you got to find all the other ways that you can to get back into it.
Let's see. Defensive rebounding, man. I think we knew that was going to be a problem. You've got Tenon Magassa. The rest of the squad, they have big girls, and they're all back. Like that was the heavily talked about thing with Rhode Island, is that they were a really, really good team that just had a ton of injuries and finally got healthy. Like this is what Travis Ford wanted his team to be.
Yeah, that's right.
Or this is what he was trying to sell.
So Magassa, she's really long, Abu's sister, really long player. I think the main one that got to me, the main offensive rebound, and I think wound up being kind of the biggest play in the game. Just a few minutes left. It was off a missed free throw. And then she rips the offensive rebound away, gets it out to the corner, and they've got somebody at a tough angle in the corner who hits a 3 to put them up 5. And that kind of puts Rhode Island in the driver's seat the rest of the way. So then when you have Shavers out, you've got Simon fouling out in the fourth quarter. So now SLU's really small inside the rest of the way. So that is part of it. But yeah, the defensive rebounding was really killer. But they also just had too many misses down the stretch, right? And a couple turnovers that wound up being costly. I'm thinking of the one where I think Gray made a nice dish to McMakin under the basket and she wasn't ready for it. It kind of bounced off her chin, and that was it. But yeah, it was still close despite SLU losing on the boards, despite being outshot 48% to 39%. Kennedy had 16 and 7, McMakin 13, Gray had 10. Calhoun had a nice game with 9, 5, and 4. No one shot particularly well. It was a quiet game for Julia Martinez. Look, Rhode Island's good. Getting them as a 6 seed's a tough draw. They were picked to win the league. SLU had a chance to end their season for the second straight year, and they came very, very close. And Zach, I think you and I agree that we'll probably have a few more things to say to wrap up the season, but we'll probably just save that for another time when we've got a little more time to go over the state of the program.
Yeah, I think one last thing I did have on this game was that final minute or so where it seemed like kind of McMakin just kind of tried to take over, and I thought maybe she took a couple of wild threes, and I thought with the way Rhode Island had been shooting free throws, I was really expecting them to just try to keep extending the game, and I wasn't super happy, and I don't know if anybody felt the same way, but I didn't love her taking the wild threes there when you could have tried to get to the hoop.
Yeah,
because I think she had a chance to get to the hoop at least one point where it was she turned around and backed out and
That's
went
right.
to go.
Yeah.
Women's soccer, we finally have a replacement for for Chris Allen, the beloved bald man himself, Chris Allen. Colleen Corbin is replacing him as associate head coach. And Pete, this is a wild get in my mind. You're pulling Pete, just run us down.
So she's associate head coach, but she served as head coach at Wyoming for the past 3 seasons. And in one of those seasons, she won the conference.
Yeah.
Like Shields, she's a California native. She was the associate head coach at James Madison before going to Wyoming. And then she's also served as an assistant at Arizona State and Cal State Northridge. She played goalkeeper at Oregon State, where she was an All-American, set some school records, led them to the Sweet 16 once, and then played a couple of years professionally before getting into coaching. The only question I have, Zach, because you're right, it seems like to get a head coach as your AHC seems like quite a coup, but is she too similar to Shields because they're both goalies?
They're both women.
No,
shit. I'm sorry. I thought you were okay. Yeah. I thought you were saying there are too many women on the staff, which hey, come on, man.
I'm not going to let you get me in trouble. I'm going to watch you go down in flames. Every time you say something dumb, it's not me.
Yeah, no, I don't know.
Two goalies, man.
They're weird though. They got to be. Yeah, not all goalies are the same, man. I resent that. No, I don't know. I'm interested to see, but as Shields would say, you wanna beat the best, you got to get the best.
Yeah.
And I think grabbing hiring a head coach away to be your associate head coach is uh, a massive Stones move.
Yeah, it is. I mean, what did Allen have that needed to be replaced, right? Like she talked about how many times has she told us what an incredible scout that he puts
Yeah.
together all the time. So you really needed somebody who understands how to break down the game, and getting a head coach sure looks like the way to do that.
Um, they have also signed a big incoming class, but we're going to cover that in the coming weeks when things slow down. If they slow down, who knows,
Yeah,
with men's basketball, and we can
we'll
give
get
them
to it.
more time.
No rush. We'll get to it. We'll get to men's
Yes.
soccer class too.
Uh, Baseball, Pete, they're going to kind of get shortchanged here. We're going to run them down, but they continue to absolutely hammer the baseball and are now what, 14-1, 14-1 on the
14 and
season.
1.
Uh, they
14 and
have
1.
they have major land in the college baseball imperialism map. First game, they ended up playing a doubleheader, or no. First game was the midweek game, 14-4 in 7 innings against Western Illinois on Tuesday the 5th. Western Illinois got out to a 3-0 lead in the first 2 innings, but in the bottom of the third, as they often have this season, the Bats woke up. Fresh off being named A10 Player of the Week, Patrick Colosi tripled to send Hayden Moore home and kick off the scoring. A sac fly and a single later, the game was tied at 3. Western Illinois got another in the top of the fourth, but it would be their last. Closey put SLU ahead for good with a 3-run homer in the bottom of the fourth. The Billikens scored 6 in the next, including a home run from Moore. Closey led SLU with 4 runs, 4 RBIs. He and Graham Mastros had 3 hits apiece. Everyone in the lineup got at least 1 hit. The Billikens, channeling their inner 80s Cardinals, had 5 stolen bases. Dawson Smith started and gave up 3 runs in 2 innings. Jackson Yarberry got the win, pitching the next 3. Evan Gray and Josh Cunningham each pitched a scoreless inning to wrap it up. Pete, let's talk about this kickoff game to the 3-game series against Loyola.
Yeah, a pretty good Loyola Marymount team came in and SLU got a sweep here, Zach, in 3 games. They wound up moving the first game from Friday to Saturday for weather reasons, and they won it 9-5. Closey hit a grand slam in the third to give SLU a 4-1 lead. They led 7-2 after 5, and Loyola Marymount got 3 more in the 8th and 9th, but it was too little too late. Ethan Sitzman scored 3 times. Tommy Ray started, went 6 innings, and got the win. He struck out 7 in the process. Jack Weber pitched the final 3 innings and allowed 3 runs. And the pitcher they beat, by the way, Owen Hackman, really good. One of the better college pitchers you'll see out there. So the fact that they put up 9 in that game is a big deal. Zach, why don't you take us through game 2 on Saturday?
These games were all pretty close, with still really big offensive output from the Billikens. 8-6 win Saturday the 9th. SLU had an 8-3 lead after 6, but Loyola Marymount gave them a scare, getting 3 more in the top of the 7th. But that was the end of the scoring. Top half of the order took care of business, with each of the first 5 guys in the lineup getting at least 2 hits and 1 ribby each. All of them scored as well. The only home run for SLU was a solo shot from Tyler Fogarty in the 4th. Hayden Moore had an RBI triple in the 5th. Moore, Closey, Cole Smith had 3 hits apiece. Jackson Holmes started, got the win, going 5 innings and giving up 3 earned runs. Jackson Yarberry pitched the next 2 and gave up 3. Ethan Bell gets the save. Pete, the rubber match. Well, it's not a rubber match if they don't split. So the third game, Pete.
Yeah, this one was just to ice the cake. 11-9 was the win on Sunday. SLU scored in every inning except the second. They got a scare in the top of the 9th. They had an 11-5 lead and managed to get out after allowing 4 runs that inning. SLU actually used 6 different pitchers, and Josh Cunningham, who pitched the 5th and 6th, got the win. All 9 batters in the lineup got at least 1 hit. Ethan Sitzman went 4 for 4 with a home run, 3 runs and 2 RBIs. Cole Smith was 2 for 4 with 3 RBIs and a run. And then Tyler Fogarty went 3 of 5 with an RBI and a run. SLU will host Missouri State for a one-off game on Tuesday the 12th. And then they'll head down to the other non-SLU, Southeastern Louisiana.
Oh, boy.
for a weekend series on the 15th to 17th to determine which school can actually use that abbreviation.
I really, really hope that we get a stream for that one. Because I would like to watch this team play. Yes.
Is there one?
Yes. Yes. Friday at 6 p.m., Saturday at 2, Sunday at 1, all on ESPN Plus from
Okay.
Hammond, Louisiana at Pat Kennelly Diamond at the Alumni Field.
They're pretty good. They're 11-6, and they've got some good wins. So,
This will be a big test.
Yeah, for sure.
Is Cal State Fullerton good anymore?
They've usually are. I'm going to assume they're still a strong program, even in down seasons. They're probably tough to beat, but yeah, I don't know.
7-7, 2-1 loss in 11 innings to Eastern Carolina. It doesn't matter. Softball, Billiken Spring Tournament featuring St. Thomas in Illinois on Sunday the 9th or Saturday the 9th and Sunday the 10th. 9-1 win in 5 innings versus St. Thomas on Saturday the 9th in game 1. It was the home opener, and all 9 of SLU runs came off home runs. Cammie Newbanks gave SLU a 1-0 lead with a solo shot in the first, and the Billikens added 6 in the second to run away with it. 6 runs came on 3 homers from Kelsey Etling and Natalie Sullivan. St. Thomas scored 1 in the top of the 5th, but SLU got 2 more in the bottom of the inning. Solo shots from Abby Mallow and Kelsey Etling. Hockman pitched a 3-hitter going 4 1/3 for the win. Struck out 6 and only walked 1. Lily Strand got the last 2 outs of the game. Game 2, Pete.
Yeah, this was an 8-5 win over St. Thomas on Saturday. St. Thomas drew first blood. They scored 3 in the top of the first, but by the end of the third, SLU led 6-3. SLU only had 6 hits, managing to make the most of every single base runner they got on. Jocelyn Abbott led the Bills with 4 RBIs, including a 3-run double that gave them a 3-run lead in the third. Isabel Royal went 5 innings and got the win. She gave up 4 earned runs and struck out 5. And then Lily Strand came in for the last 2 and retired 6 straight batters for the save. And then Zach, on Sunday the 10th, they played Illinois.
Yeah, a 6-3 loss to Illinois. The Billikens had a 3-2 lead going into the final inning and gave up 4 runs. SLU actually had a 3-0 lead after 2 innings thanks to some small ball run creation and a little help from a fielding error by Illinois. The Illini made it 3-2 with a 2-run double in the third. Then in the 7th, they got to Hockman. After a leadoff single, they bunted her over. A ground out moved the leadoff runner to third with 2 outs. Then the Illini went single, hit by a pitch, single, double, single before a strikeout ended the inning. Isabel Royal actually came on for the last out. SLU was not able to answer in the bottom of the 7th. Abby Ulsis led the Billikens with 2 hits and 2 runs. Next, the Billikens wrap up against Illinois on Monday, the 11th, then host Western Illinois for a one-off game on Wednesday, the 13th, before UMass comes to SLU for the A10 opener in a 3-game weekend series on the 16th and 17th. I can't believe we're already into A10 play in softball.
Yeah, that's a busy week too. 5 games.
Oh, yeah. Tennis, Pete. They did stuff.
The men, they did stuff. We're already in conference play there too. They got the 4-2 win over Davidson on Friday the 8th. SLU lost the doubles point, getting only 1 of 3 of those matches. And then Davidson won the first singles match as well, with the number 2 spot finishing first, before SLU then won in the 3 through 6 spots and left number 1 unfinished. Andres Castellanos, Declan Townsend, Theo Ortiz, and Valentin Vasquez all won. Fukushima didn't finish, but he was up late in the 3rd set, and Luca Leonardo was the only one to lose on the singles side. The win gave them 7 straight, matching a program record, but unfortunately it would end there because they lost to Dayton 4-0 on Sunday the 10th. Dayton took the doubles points with 2 of 3 wins there, although it looked like SLU would have won the other had it not been unfinished. And then they won in the number 3, 4, and 6 singles spots to go ahead and sweep, and left the other 3 unfinished, unfortunately. Next, SLU will head down to Hilton Head, South Carolina on the 12th to the 14th to face Ryder, Hillsdale, and West Virginia State. So only one D1 opponent in that mix there. Zach, why don't you take us through the women?
Women won both matches this week. 4-1 win at KC Monday the 4th, the Billikens cruised to an easy doubles point win 6-1, 6-2 in the first two spots, and then the third going unfinished. Singles play, Elizabeth Mintasova, Nora and Hesham, and Sandra Gines won in the 1, 3, and 4 spots. This win took the Billikens to 7-0, 7-0, tying the best start in program history since 2011, 2012. They would improve on that with a 7-0 win over the Leathernecks of Western Illinois on Wednesday the 6th, improving to 8-0, now the best start in program history. They swept the 3 doubles matches and singles matches, Mintasova, Alashino, White, Ferreira, Barlow, and Duran, winning. SLU is slated to face Kansas City and Ryder down in Hilton Head next week. I think that's it.
I think that's it, Zach. But as always, stay tuned for what happens this week. We may, depending on how things go, we don't know yet. We may have a very special episode to bring your way.
May jump on Spaces.
We may jump on Twitter Spaces, so keep an eye over there. Just be ready for whatever.
Maybe some SLU Twitter think tank content.
Mm-hmm.
We may be on the mic a lot more in the next coming weeks.
We may be, so keep your calendar open, and and we'll have a lot to a lot to say.
Make sure you plan out your drive time so you can listen to our show every day if push comes to shove. But thank you all for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe, comment on YouTube, always appreciated. Pete, go Bills.
Go Bills.